I'm not, I need to like loosen up. Today I'm going to be talking about my relationship with a very special plant that is near and dear to my heart, cannabis. Before we get started, I want to take a moment of gratitude to express just how grateful I feel. My followers have increased by almost 2,000 in about a week and a half. I've always been the type of person that like, I don't know, I feel weird saying like, oh, my followers grew by, the numbers. Like people say, don't get caught up in the numbers. When I took a second to think about it, that maybe 2,000 followers, but that's 2,000 unique souls that are now following my page and that I have the chance to inspire. 2,000 souls that will also most likely and are inspiring me. So for that, I'm so grateful. I did not really see this coming, kind of came out of nowhere. As many of you probably saw, I talk about this on my page. A couple weeks back, I was very lost and knew I wanted to start speaking in some way, but I wasn't sure how to get my voice out there. I really humbly prayed to the universe. I had a prayer where I just felt so mindful, so one with everything, and it was really from my gut, and I was praying. And then right after that prayer, the day after, something told me to start making little videos, and I've been starting to do that and kind of share my thoughts on different things. Yeah, the page has just taken off and my follower base has taken off, and my YouTube page, it's now converting over to my YouTube page. So my YouTube page has been significantly growing, more than I've seen it since I started. I don't really know where this is all going, but I'm so thankful, I'm so happy, and I'm trying to just be content with the now and focus on being my authentic self and sharing my message. So thank you to you all. Today I'm going to be talking about cannabis. My relationship with this plant has significantly changed over the years. I don't think this plant is for everyone. I used to be a person that I used to like hate it, and I thought it was bad and evil and all of these just awful things. After my personal use with it and doing my own research, I do not believe that at all anymore. The reason I say I don't believe it's for everyone, well, first of all, not everybody has a medicinal use for it. There are people that simply use it to be able to live day to day, to be able to function. Some people have seizures, terrible crippling anxiety, depression, cancer, pain, fibromyalgia, arthritis, the list goes on and on and on. So some people simply use it to function. There are other people that don't, and I don't know that everybody has the capability in the current state that they're in to dive into that part of themselves, the part that cannabis makes you dive into almost involuntarily when you consume it, if you consume enough of it. And I don't think that everybody is in a state where they're ready for that. So that's why I say I don't think it's necessarily for everybody, and this video is to not push it onto everybody, simply to educate and explain my perspective. So yes, so I don't think cannabis is for everybody. However, it is for a lot of people, and what really drives me nuts is when people don't really know much about it, or they don't personally use it, or they've never even used it, and they project their uneducated and ignorant thoughts onto other people. That's what I have a problem with. I hear a lot of statements from, people that I know, comments online and other places. This is not for the people that have, that are grounded and have thought about it, maybe tried it a couple times, realized it wasn't for them. This is about the people that don't really know much about it and are making these statements in an uneducated manner. So the first thing I hear is that it is a gateway drug. I have used cannabis a number of times. I know so many people that have. I have a network of people that do. I have friends that do. I have family that do. I read about people that do. I watch videos about people that do. All these people that consume cannabis. I have not met one person that has consumed cannabis and then proceeded to say that they now want to use cocaine or meth or heroin or any other type of drug. If you feel like you want to consume another drug after taking cannabis, then that is you wanting to take another drug, and it is not the cannabis making you want to take the other drug. Another thing that I hear from people is, I've been talking about the spiritual awakening and how it helps me get in touch with my spirituality and what I feel like maybe past lifetimes, and diving deep and helping with stress and anxiety and the ability to relax and seeing my thoughts and all of these other abstract concepts. And a common thing that I hear other people say is, well, I don't need that. I'm not totally sure what that statement even means. In my opinion, it's rooted in fear, because a lot of people are probably scared to go to those places, and that's okay. But saying you don't need that doesn't equate to it being fearful, so I'm not really sure how that connects. If you don't need cannabis or feel like you don't need it, well, one, that's great that you live in a state where your body feels great, you don't have any physical ailments, you're not stressed out, you're not anxious, you're not depressed. If you're not experiencing any of those things, amazing for you. That statement has often been made to me in kind of a condescending manner from people who I don't think are dealing with a lot of things going on in their life, and also probably fearful to deal with those things. So that statement's just really ignorant to me, and I just don't like it. And then the most common thing that I hear is about the unpleasant experiences with cannabis. Cannabis has an interesting, intriguing, beautiful way of bringing things to the surface that you may not know exist, or that may just be asleep to you. So a common thing that I hear is people consume it for the first time and they get super anxious or super depressed. It's not the cannabis necessarily that's making you anxious. It's that you're probably an anxious individual or a depressed individual most of the time, and the cannabis is relaxing your body and relaxing the state of your existence to where those things are rising to the surface. Another common thing is people getting paranoid. They consume cannabis and all of a sudden they're very alert, hypersensitive, and paranoid. Well, you're probably a person that has significant trust issues deeply rooted within you and built into you. So when cannabis is relaxing your state of existence, all of those things are coming up and now you're paranoid. Another thing is people that get super lethargic, or they fall asleep as soon as they consume cannabis, and they're like, oh, cannabis just makes me tired. You're probably physically and spiritually exhausted every single day. So when the cannabis relaxes your state of existence, that's what it is telling you to do. So you do it. Cannabis is such a beautiful compound in that it doesn't always produce a peaceful reaction at first, especially if you're not familiar with it, but it's going to tell you the truth about yourself and what you have going on. This just provides awareness on how many people are scared of their truth, because cannabis brings the truth to the surface without your control. This is something that I used to be so scared of, and this is a great transition into my path with cannabis. Like I said, I used to be somebody who thought it was terrible, it was awful. I remember my brother even used to smoke it, and I was like, Joe, anything but cannabis, why are you smoking cannabis? I even called it marijuana. I don't like to call it marijuana anymore, but I was just like, why weed? Like, don't ruin your brain. Like, all of these very ignorant things. And I got into a really, really deep, dark place with anxiety that I talked about to you guys in my story videos. I got into a really deep place with it, and I got so low. My husband would always tell me about medical cannabis. Started to research it, and I was like, the CBD thing sounds kind of cool, so I'm gonna start looking into it. I got my medical card and I started consuming CBD, and it helped in the beginning. And then I started consuming more THC-based products, and I remember liking the high at first because it was like a little high. I really went in slowly with my progression with it. I think I started out with like 5 milligram edibles. And I'm super sensitive to any sort of change, like head change or any change in my body. So the 5 milligrams got me like super high. I remember the first time I got high, I was laying in my room by myself, and I remember feeling it come on, and I literally just laid there in my room for like an hour by myself laughing. I don't even know what I was laughing at, but I was just laughing. It was the best. After that, I got high a couple different times, and it was great. But then I remember the first time I got a little too high and I got paranoid. It was just awful. I remember we were watching this movie, and I can't remember what it was, but it was based in like the snow. And I remember just watching it, and I was like it felt like the people in the movie were like talking like moi, moi, moi. And I just was like, I don't speak English anymore. Like I could not comprehend English or language, and I couldn't form words, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what people talk about, like I'm going crazy. And I was like, I remember I was Googling in bed how to come down from a high, and one thing was like pepper, but I couldn't walk, I couldn't move, so I was like trying to get my husband and my brother to go get me pepper, and I was yelling at them like, I need pepper, and they're like, you're fine, you're just too high, calm down. And I was like, no, I need pepper, like go, and they wouldn't go get me pepper. I was so freaked out. That didn't deter me, but it definitely made me much more cautious after that. And even now, or not necessarily now, still a little bit, but I was very cautious in the months after that. So I would take hits, but I would take little small hits, and I would just like watch myself. And sometimes I would get into a really bad web of anxiety, and I would blame the cannabis. And I had moments where I would have panic attacks after being high, and I would blame the cannabis. And I thought it was like this compound that was just inducing anxiety in me. Then I started to read up on it, listen to more experiences from different people, and I have really changed my relationship with it, and it is continuing to evolve day after day and week after week when I consume it. It helps me do so many things that I would never have been open to exploring or uncovering if I hadn't kept an open mind with it and just shut it off and said, oh, this just makes me paranoid, or this just makes me anxious. One thing it really does for me is it creates a super compassionate lens. When I look at a person or a situation, or I analyze a past situation in my life, I have a completely different lens. I have this very caring, open, compassionate, understanding lens. It was actually one session with Cannabis that I was able to make leaps and bounds in forgiving my dad for some ignorance that he held when he was raising me, for a couple different things in my past. Instead of just seeing him as my dad, I saw him as an individual in pain at that part in his life. And when I was able to see him in pain with the compassionate lens that I held, it allowed me to have so much forgiveness, because he only knew what he knew at that time. Another thing that happens to me often, I watch a lot of movies. I like watching kind of dark movies and dark shows. Like I watch American Horror Story, other kind of eerie, weird movies, like The Secret Window is one of them I just watched. When I watch these shows, especially if there's like a serial killer or someone that does like really sick things in these shows, when I consume cannabis and I watch them, I have this weird, compassionate understanding for the sickness. It's an understanding for the pain behind the sickness, and then the action that is stemmed from the pain. It doesn't necessarily make the action justified or right, but I can understand the pain that someone is going through. Like I watched this movie, I forget what it was, but I watched this movie, and the main character, when he was young, I forget what it was, but the main character when he was young, he tried to save a bird. He brought it home, and his dad used to beat him, and he was severely abused as a little boy. He brought home a little bird that he wanted to nurse back to health. And when he was afraid his dad was going to find it. Well, he tried to keep this bird protected and safe, but he realized that his dad was going to find it. So what he did was he killed that bird to put it out of his misery, because he knew his dad was going to do something worse to it. So for him, from his perspective, he was killing this bird to save it. So this this little boy ended up growing up to be this serial killer, and he did awful things to women. It was so terrible and not justified. But in his mind, when he was explaining his point of view, he was like, but I'm saving these women, because he would find these women in these awful situations that were hurting and in distress, and then he would kill them. And so for him, in his mind, it was justified. And it was weird because like I almost understood how a person could justify it, because I had this open and compassionate lens for the pain of that person and what they endured. So that is a way that cannabis completely opens up my brain, and it allows me to view things in ways that I cannot do when I don't consume it. Another thing that it does for me is it allows me to see myself but outside of myself, and see others but outside of myself too. So I can observe everything externally. For example, one time I consumed high amounts of cannabis, and I was able to observe my PTSD outside of myself, and anxiety and thoughts outside of myself. You almost can view it as a tangible thing. You can see your thoughts kind of going by, and you can see how you create the web of anxiety yourself. Last night, for example, I consumed cannabis. Every single thought that I had was a choice. So I saw myself starting to get a little worked up about the lens that I had, about the different awareness, the head change, because that's scary for me, because I used to be a severe hypochondriac, so any sort of change in my body is frightening. But I saw that change coming on, and I saw myself starting to get a little nervous about it. And when I did, I was like, I have a choice. I can choose to get worked up, or I can choose to allow. And I chose to allow. And I had a series of those decisions, probably 15 to 20 of those decisions, where my mind wanted to get anxious, or it had a choice not to, and I chose not to. And when you're high, you can see these choices right in front of you, and you almost have time to make that choice. See, the anxiety runs so fast and so quick when we're sober. We can't look at our minds in the way that we can when we consume cannabis. So they go so quick, and you almost don't have a choice. But with cannabis, you can take a step back and look at it in front of you and say, I don't want to go there. I want to go there. And that's what I can do. Another thing that happens is a lot of repressed emotions, or things from before other parts in my life, they'll come up. And they come up pretty quickly, and I'm like, whoa, I remember that. I didn't even remember that had happened, but now I remember it. It comes up, and then the reason for it coming up comes up as well. I don't really have a good example at the top of my head right now, but let's just say you remember a certain scenario in your childhood that made you really upset. Let's just say, I don't even really have a good example, and I don't want to waste time thinking about one, but a certain scenario of your childhood made you super upset. Well, maybe in your life, you've been going through something where you're feeling those same emotions constantly, and you don't really know why, but then when you consume cannabis, a situation where that emotion maybe started in your childhood will come up, and it'll be like, whoa, that's where it started. That happens to me a lot, where I'll have something that I'm dealing with in my life, and I don't really know where it's rooted in. And then when I get high and I sit there and I think about that thing, the first occurrence of whatever that emotion is will come up, and then I can deal with it, and then I can release it. And then I no longer have that problem in my life, or I no longer am dealing with that part of my emotions anymore, or it's much less intense when I am dealing with it. So that's another huge thing. I like to do repressed emotion healing sessions with cannabis. Another thing is seeing energy very, very clearly. Like last night, for example, my husband had to work early this morning, and so I came home. I actually came home later than he did. I was out at my family's house, but I came home and I felt super loving and cuddly, and I wanted to like snuggle up with him in bed. But he was very stressed out, having to get up early, and he's very meticulous with his sleep. So he was very stressed out, and he was sleeping. And so I went up to him and I kissed him and I tried to cuddle with him, and he had a very closed off energy. He felt like a brick wall. And I felt that energy exuding from him almost before I even got close to him. So that's with cannabis. When I consume cannabis, you can feel and see energies as tangible things. Like I can see anxiety in other people, I can see sadness in other people, I can see happiness in other people, I can see compassion in other people, and the energies almost feel tangible. It's so hard to explain, but it's this lens that I have where I can call something out almost immediately when I have this lens. And the last thing that I can think about right now that comes to mind with cannabis is I have not really explored this part of it yet very much. I see people and hear people that I've never met and have never seen before. I have a hunch that they're from maybe past lifetimes. I get a lot of people from slavery days, of just that era, and I'm not sure why. And I hear voices, and every time I go into that part, every time that comes up for me, and this is usually when I have my eyes closed and I'm laying in bed or some other place and I have my eyes closed, I get really intense visions and intense visuals. And I'm a little scared to dive into it, and I'll be the first person to say that I bring myself back from it. I try to go there, and then my body kind of jolts back, and I'm not allowing myself to go there right now. I feel like I see my past lifetimes a lot, and I don't know what that means. That's something I'm definitely going to explore here in the near future. All in all, you know, cannabis is something that is so beautiful, it's so healing, it has so many benefits for so many different people. Like I said before, I don't think it's for everybody, but I think it's for a lot of people, especially if you want to learn more about yourself, expand your awareness, expand your spirituality, connect with nature, connect with yourself, connect with everything. It helps people with, it has medicinal benefits, it helps people with seizures, with pain, with everything. So the people out there ignorantly speaking about it, I challenge them to, one, maybe do some more research, and two, try it themselves, but with an open awareness and taking into account everything that I said in this video. Because if you allow it to be, it can be one of the most beautiful things and just eye-opening plants. And it can just be so fantastically amazing for your growth as an individual. And I encourage every single person to at least consider that and explore it for themselves. It's helped me in tremendous ways. And like I said before, I used to be a person that I thought it was the most evil thing, and now I think it's one of the most. Now I think it's one of the greatest gifts that earth has to offer. It's interesting how much your awareness and your knowledge around something can change if you simply keep an open mind for a good amount of time and keep exploring and keep researching. All right, well, I think that is it for me today. I just wanted to talk to you guys about my thoughts on cannabis, a bit about my journey with it, and for those that have been, a couple of you have reached out to me and explained your curiosity about it. Maybe you don't use it very much, but you kind of want to. Leave me a comment if you consume cannabis and you experience anything that I talked about in this video. I would love to hear from you. I love hearing when I have parallel experiences with other people and I can relate to them. But also maybe reach out if you're curious about trying, but maybe you're nervous. Let me know what things are holding you back. Maybe things you have questions about. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your attention. I appreciate each and every one of you. Like I said, this account, my Instagram, and this YouTube account, they are growing very rapidly, and I am so grateful. I'm a little nervous because I don't know where it's going, but I am so grateful for each and every one of you for tuning in. So thank you so much. I look forward to hearing from all of you, and I will see you next time.